Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. This Tuesday, 28th of December, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you guys here. Now, I'm going to move right in real quick. I'm going to get the chart started right here. What we're looking at is just a whole bunch of articles on the news right here about vaccine protests all across the world, here, there, and everywhere. This is something that, there's just tons of articles about it here. All these vaccine protests. Tens of thousands protest in Austria, and they're protesting in a lot of cities in Europe and in Germany and every place else. They're protesting these vaccines. Okay, here's what I want to talk about. Well, I'm going to go over to the silver chart right here. We're going to take a look at silver today. Anyway, silver's broke. By the way, guys, silver's broke above $23. Okay, let's get back to talking about these protests. These protests are actually a symptom of something. Now, I'm going to explain to you guys the reason why the Fed is going into this tightening process right now. And it has a lot to do with these protests. You see, when the virus first came through, tremendous fear went around the people of the earth. And they looked to their governments. And what happened was their governments realized that they had this omnipotent power that was given to them by the people at that point because of the fear. The people were willing to do almost anything. If they had told the people to go out and put green hats on and dance in the street, everybody would have been out and dancing in the street with green hats on because of the fear the people had. And this was a general phenomenon that went around the whole world, and everybody was so frightened. A lot of people were. The majority, let's just put it this way, the vast majority of the people were frightened, and they do almost anything. So the government, naturally, the government was given the green light to authoritarianism. Well, things are changing. You've all heard about these things out there called conspiracy theories. And I'm going to tell you, the government does not like conspiracy theories. I'm going to explain to you why. Because it doesn't really matter. In my mind, the way I think of it, it doesn't really matter whether these are true or they're false. It's the perception that the people have. That's what matters. Now, there's a large group of people out there who believe that these things are true, and the more they see the government being authoritarian, showing authoritarianism as regards to this pandemic, the more this reinforces their belief that these things are true. And there's another group of people out there who still have a lot of faith in their government. And they are still in the dancing in the street with a green hat on. That's where they're at, they're still there. They're a large group too. And then there's an even larger group, an unseen, unspoken group out there who's sitting back there watching all of this. And they are undecided. And they're a larger group than both of these other groups put together. They're taking in the information, they're watching what's happening. And the more the government shows its authoritarian side and just putting out blanket rules and whatever they want to do, and you're going to do this to the people, you're going to do that, we're going to put this law through, boom, the more the government shows that side of how they can just push through things overnight, you just all of a sudden, boom, you're caught in a new world that the government says you do this. It's kind of like Simon says, do this now. The more the government shows their hand like that, the more this undecided group says to themselves, gee, maybe these people over here with their conspiracy theories, maybe they're right. Maybe our government, and distrust starts to spread through the land of the government. Now, spread through the land toward the government, this distrust. It's a spreading. It's like a disease. It's just like the virus itself. It's a spreading disease for the government. right now we're at a curious little period here where I'm not sure how much the government is witnessing this phenomenon that's occurring, but there's a very stark change happening right now throughout the land. Is the fear that was generated originally that gave the government these authoritarian uh, powers. Let's call it their omnipotent power. The people gave them that power because they were frightened. Now what's happening is, especially with this Omicron variant moving through and whatever, a lot of people are probably an awful lot more people than you can imagine, because there are tests out there, you know. I mean, how many, they're running short of tests and everything else. How many people have Omicron and they're not able to get them tested? They have to go home and suffer through it or whatever, you know. It's probably, they're probably only showing a very, very marginal tip of the iceberg compared to the way this thing's spreading around the world right now. Well, the people are sick, but you know, a lot of the people realize, hey, I've got this. It matches all the symptoms, but I can't get in and get tested, and there's too long a lineups. Maybe they'll go and try to get tested, and they might hit a lineup that's 5 hours long, and it's in the cold or whatever, and they go back home and they crawl into their warm bed and they just forget about it. Well, a few days later, maybe they start feeling better. They're not going to bother getting tested. So the numbers aren't showing what's really going on out there. And these people, they say, well, that's it. I had it. I've had it already. You know, and they've already told us that this thing is going to, every person on Earth is going to be exposed. Well, an awful lot of people have had it already, you know, and they're saying to themselves, I know I had it. I had it, they say. I had it. Even though I didn't get tested, I know that's what it was, you know, because they matched all the symptoms or whatever. And they say to themselves, well, I'm not frightened of this thing anymore. And as this thing passes through, there's going to be more and more people going into that camp where they're not frightened of the disease anymore. They figure, well, I've probably had it already, you know, whatever, you know, and they're not frightened. The government, you know, at this point, this stage in the game, their omnipotent power that was given to them by the people because of fear, that fear is rapidly diminishing amongst the people. But we still have this large group out there who believes in the conspiracy. And we also have this other large group out there who doesn't. They have whole faith in still have whole faith in their government. And then we still have this undecided group out there. More and more, right now, the people are watching to see what the government's going to do at this point. They're not so frightened anymore. And when the government shows this hand, shows a hard crushing hand, what's going to happen at this point? Well, all these massive amounts of people, which is the biggest group of all, the undecided bunch, are going to, if the government shows a hard hand, they're going to say, well, maybe these people that were protesting and marching and believing all these conspiracies, maybe they're right. Because people are free thinkers in the world out there. They might have their heads stuck in the new VR thing, you know, doing all of the virtual reality and everything else, and have their head stuck in the phone for 15 hours a day. But you know what? Information can travel through those sources as well. And they're out there going who knows where on the internet, you know, and reading who knows what. And they're becoming, as they do that, they're becoming more and more associated with these ideas out there that are being promulgated across the internet. And there's a shift occurring right now, a massive shift occurring. The same shift that occurred at the beginning of the pandemic when everybody got frightened, there's also the same shift occurring now, because there's two sides to a coin. Okay, when you take a look at a coin, you got heads on one side, tails on the other side, you know. Well, the opposite side of the coin from fear is anger. That's the opposite side of the coin. So when you flip that coin, the other side is fear. So this fear that went around the world and the origins of this pandemic originally, that fear can be transferred into anger overnight. I don't know if they realize what precarious grounds they're walking on right now as regards to the people, and just how quickly something can grow out of hand in the opposite direction when the people of Earth have been through what we've been through over the last 2 years. Things can happen very, very quickly in the world. So I'm keeping my eye on everything that's going on out there. I try to maintain a neutral attitude toward it to a certain degree, but I mean, even I can get caught up in some of this stuff, if I'm not careful. But in order to report to you guys in an unbiased way, I have to try to maintain a neutral. But the world's divided right now. And the thing is but being from a neutral position, looking at this division, I can assess it a little bit better. And that's why I have to try to maintain my neutrality toward it. But I do have a leaning in one direction or the other. That's where I lean, I kind of lean that way, and but I still try to maintain so that I can give you guys a good balanced picture of what's actually happening out there amongst the people. And I can see this resentment and anger and manifest itself in some of the posts that come in on my channels, And I try to maintain, like on my channels, I try to maintain a happy atmosphere and everything else. But I can see it amongst the people out there, and they're not quick to forget, the people, and they're not quick to forgive either. And they are turning. The tide's turning from fear to anger. They're angry about everything that's happened to them over the last 2 years. And there might come a point where this might coalesce into something where they look for somebody to blame for all of this. And there might be a time of reckoning coming. Anyway, well, let's get on. Let's take a look at the markets today. 23.07. It's up 2 cents. Let's take a look now at gold. Gold is 18.11. It's down 90 cents on the day. Now I'm going to get into the Fed now. The reason why the Fed is tightening. Why they really don't want to let this inflation get out of control. Because here's the thing. I've talked about the people, how the people are frightened and the fear out there. Massive amounts of fear, and how it's changing now to anger. Well, the people aren't going to form together into I don't really know how to word. I don't want to word this the wrong way, but as long as the people are fat and happy, as long as they're being well fed, they'll remain passive. The Fed knows that. The problem with the inflation is, if it runs away out of control, the people are not going to be, after a few months passes, like this inflation, it won't stop at like 6 point whatever percent they say it is, which is really 15% inflation. They say it's 6 point something, but it's really 15%. It won't stop there. It'll go up to 30%, and then their official CPI would probably have to go up to 15%. And then it wouldn't stop there. Then it would go to then the official would be 30%, and the real inflation would be like 80%. And it can keep right on going until it's more than 100%, 200%, 500%, 1,000,000%. It can just keep right on going. And what happens to the people then? Well, then they get squeezed, and they're not fat and happy anymore. They're not satisfied anymore. And the anger that they've felt through this, the fear that's transformed itself into anger through this crisis, would be compounded by the fact that they can't feed their family. Fed knows that. Fed knows how quick this inflation can roar away. And so the Fed says, okay, we got to speed this thing up. We got to get right in there. No, not $15 billion a month. We're going to do 30. Oh, we're going to get this done. all they're going to do is just move the whole thing into the other direction to a crash. They're going to try to put the house fire out, but the problem is it's an electrical fire. And when they throw the water on it, what's going to happen? Bzz, bzz, bzz. It's going to go crazy. It'll be all over the place. This is a situation that we're in the world. And so this anger and resentment has been building up over 2 years through this virus pandemic. It's the fear being transformed into anger and resentment. And almost every person on earth right now is feeling it. They're feeling the pressure of it. And it can transform itself into action overnight, where right now it's not. Right now it's just all the people are feeling it, but they're not taking any actions. But when they tend to take actions is when they all start to form together in groups and stuff, And this is what happens, And so we're right on the edge right now of something astronomically large. And the more the government tries to put out this fire, the more the people see them as being the not trusted one. And the more resentment and anger the people have. So how do you put it out? You put it out by acting in the opposite way from the way they've been acting over the last 2 years. They have to transform themselves to put this fire out. It's not too late. They can put this fire out, but they better act fast. Otherwise, there could be really big trouble coming. And the Fed, they're trying to put this inflation out before inflation runs away and makes the people so that the people are not happy anymore because the people are finding trouble purchasing. I mean, when your wage only goes up 10% and the can of beans you're buying goes up by 70%, it's just simple math that people are going to have a harder and harder time feeding themselves. And they've done the math on this. They know. When the vast majority of the people out there are having food insecurity, look out. Look out. If you're in power over those people, you got a big problem on your hands. I mean, in power, if you're the leader of those people, say it was a country, I don't know, maybe some fictitious land off in the ocean someplace, Lemuria, the leader of Lemuria, and he's got a bunch of dissatisfied people, he's in big trouble. Especially if it's set up so that the people believe that the more authoritarian he is, in other words, if this leader of Lemuria tries to quash the trouble, the more the people are going to believe that he is not to be trusted. It's just a vicious circle here. An awful lot of things out there are a vicious circle. Inflation is a vicious circle. And so is deflation, which we're treading the edge of both of these. Anyway, 1811 for gold. Let's take a look at cryptos today. 2,309,000,000,000. Let me refresh the page. 2,277,000,000,000. So it's going down right now. We're looking at a Bitcoin price of 48,417. Okay, let's take a look at the Dow Jones today. It's up 153 points. 148 right now. 36,450. Let's take a look at the crude oil. 76.34. Wow, crude oil is getting toasty hot. It's up 77 cents or 1% today. Let's take a look at the MOVE index. 80.12. That's getting high. It's starting to get up a little bit higher again than it was. Okay, bonds and rates. And we're looking at falling yields today, but it's not real big. But, we're looking at unbelievably low rates. U.S. 10-year at 1.46 and the U.S. 30-year at 1.86. Let's take a look now at the dollar index, which was going up earlier. Now it's starting to fall again. It's at 96.13. It's been pretty stable around 96 lately, you know. Yeah, they got some big problems on their hands. All the people in power right now, all the people in the whole world that are in power right now, they got some big problems on their hands. They better think very carefully and long on what's happening right now, because it's the people that put them in power, and they have a responsibility to the people. And lest they forget that they have a responsibility to serve and protect the people out there, you know. And it's not the other way around. You know, uh, they they're what's called a public servant. You know, I mean, they are not Napoleon. This virus gives them Napoleonistic type powers just for a little while. But you know, he who giveth the people can taketh away too. You know, I mean, you have to understand that they're responsible to the people out there. And you know, if they don't recognize that there's a group of people out there who are dissatisfied, there's another larger group that's undecided, and then we have another group that's totally satisfied. I mean, they are just I mean, not the government can do whatever they want. They're totally happy with the government, no matter what the government does. That doesn't matter to them. They don't care. They're just, you know, there's that group. Okay. But, you know, the undecided group out there is watching. They're watching right now. And they believe in freedom and democracy. And they're undecided, and they're sitting out there watching what the government's going to do. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.